Hello. How are you? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of tips and tricks for your bookkeeping. The IRS requires that for anything over $25, which in my case, I just tell everybody, all of my clients, they have to keep their receipts, regardless of how much it was. Even if it was $5, we need a receipt for it because you just never know. And it's better to be over prepared rather than under prepared. Okay, let's say you go into an establishment and their printer is almost out of ink. And so it's just printing out, and there's a giant line through what you purchased or the date or anything like that. You need a legible receipt in order to claim it. You need to know it has to show the date, the place that you went, and the amount that you spent, and the actual items that you bought. Because in order for the government and or your bookkeeper to see how to categorize those purchases, we need to be able to see what it was that you bought. And you have to be able to prove that in order to claim those things on your taxes. And if you don't have that, if you were to get audited, they would write those things off. And now your deductions are less. And it could equal fines. It could equal having to pay money back to the government, and nobody wants to do that. We want to keep as much of our money as possible, right? Here's what happens. I'm not going to zoom in on this, but here's what happens when the receipts maybe aren't as legible. Like I can't see anything on here except darkness, right? And this is me trying to scan something in, and I was going to cut it, and I tried to darken it up so that you could actually see those items, and it's still not legible. And here you can see some of it, but we can barely read where it is, and the date is just non-existent on this one. So here's what I did. And this is a trick that I just learned. I'm going to do it with this receipt, which is this is one of mine. It is pretty legible, to be honest with you. It's pizza. We eat a lot of pizza in our house. But anyway, so I used all of that. And what I'm going to do is take a picture with my phone. And, most people who've been in business for a long time really understand the value of these receipts and understand that if it's not legible, they need to get someone to reprint the receipt legibly. So that's something you could definitely do while you're in the store if you know that you're making a business purchase. And again, the reason this is important is because you could have, let's say you went to Home Depot, right? And you bought 4 2x4s and you bought a jigsaw. Well, the 4 2x4s are supplies. The jigsaw, on the other hand, is a tool, and those need to be calculated out and separated within QuickBooks or Wave or whatever accounting software that you're using. So it's important to understand, and for your own budgeting purposes, it's really good to understand how much did I spend in tools last year? Maybe I need to not do that this year. Or how much did I spend in supplies? And how much did I have to return? And then you can kind of calculate, like, based on the income that you received, was it worth it? You know what I mean? Like, you can figure out those types of things. And all of these things are important, not just for your taxes, but also for your budgeting and understanding, am I charging the customer enough for what I'm having to pay for? Does that make sense? I hope so. Plus, also, the tax rates, this may vary by state, but the tax rates could be different for supplies versus tools. And that's just based on your state. And the tax rates, if you are paying taxes and you're at Home Depot and you don't have like a contractor account where you're not paying tax, it's kind of tax-free in essence, because they know that you're buying supplies. You may have to pay tax on the tool, but not on the supplies themselves. If that's not the case, we're going to have to calculate that in to your categories. So I have now taken the picture. Here it is. And what I'm going to do is click up here to edit the photo. Now down here, there's going to be like a wand with some stars under it, like a magic wand. I'm going to click on that and make sure it's highlighted. What you would do is just adjust that to the left or to the right until you can actually read those receipts, or read the numbers, read, you know, where it's to, and that sort of thing. It's really, really handy and has worked multiple times today as I'm scanning older receipts for a new client. The other reason that this is important is because you have to keep these receipts for 3 to 7 years. In some cases, you only need the receipts for 3 years. You'll have to check your accountant to ask them, how long do I need these receipts for? Either way, it's better to err on the side of caution and keep them for 7 years. And I can tell you just from experience that receipts like these will not last 7 years. They won't. It's not possible. They fade. If they are sat in the sun at all, they look terrible and they fade and they turn orange. So ask me how I know. What I recommend you do is definitely scan them. If you don't have a scanner at home, you can simply take a picture of each receipt and then share it to a Google Drive folder. And then once you've got them in the Google Drive folder, you'll want to label them. And I will give you all the tips and tricks on labeling and receipt organization on a different day. I hope that you guys have an amazing, amazing day, and I'll talk to you next time. See ya. Bye. And I'm going to click here. I'm going to have to edit that out. Okay. So I for real thought I broke my phone.